Now, before you tell us what happened at the press conference this morning with Ruben Amorim, why don't we hear, and there's a line near the end of this which we will react to afterwards. So before we hear from Rob and from Don and from me again, here's Ruben Amorim.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan on Ange Postecoglou. Of course, I'm from a different culture. I'm Portuguese, and you know all the Portuguese coaches, they can adapt, and I adapt. The simple thing is that I use one system in the moment, because I believe if you work on that system, you can play in different system at the same time. So that is my idea. But we are not winning games, and I understand the connection between me and Ange. We have the same problems. In my opinion, with all due respect, I'm in a bigger club with a bigger pressure, so I understand the connection, and I think it's really important a coach to have to follow his principles.
Okay, Spurs Man United on Sunday. So it's just meandering along there. Yeah, Ange Postecoglou this, blah, blah, blah. Boom. I'm under more pressure. I'm at a bigger club. It didn't even need a Rob Dawson pointer, a wee question to prompt him to answer that way. What was the room like after that comment was made? And what's been the fallout, Rob, from that?
I mean, yeah, you're exactly right, because you don't hear it in the clip. But the question was about systems. It was about, two managers who are married to their systems, and a little bit of criticism about why they don't change. So it was unnecessary, really, to start going down the route of we're a bigger club, I'm under more pressure. It was obviously something that he thinks, because otherwise, why would you say it? I just thought that it perhaps didn't need said. I mean, he's right in a way. The spotlight and the scrutiny at Man United is greater than it is at Spurs. It's just one of those things. I think perhaps in terms of the pressure line, he's a little bit misjudged, because I would argue that Ange Postecoglou is closer to getting the sack at Spurs than Ruben Amorim is at Man United, given the length of time he's been at Spurs. So if you're talking about pressure on his job, I would suggest that the pressure is greater on Ange Postecoglou at the moment. It's one of those comments that makes the Man United media manager sort of cringe in his seat a little bit, because it's, as Don will know, it's the kind of thing that gets pinned up in a dressing room before a game, with the manager saying, "Look, these lads think that they're a bigger club than us. Let's go and show them that you're not." And it's an added little thread to the game that perhaps isn't needed.
Don, take me inside a changing room, please. You've been in hundreds over the years as a professional footballer. Has anyone ever pinned something up on the wall?
Million times.
So what happened? It sits there, and the manager points to it. What happens?
It just sits there, and the manager points to it, and obviously delivers the tactics days before, and then boom, you get a line out the blue the day before a game, and you go, no words needed. I mean, the thing is with Amorim, I watch him, and I just watch, and I just think, please stop talking. Journalists have got a very easy job when they interview Ruben Amorim, because they know, they don't even have to prod him, really. Journalists asked him a question the other week: are you one of the worst Man United teams ever? Yes, we're one of the worst Man United teams ever. Straight away, there's a massive headline that's going to be around the world. And the hierarchy at Man United wouldn't be too happy with Ruben Amorim calling out Man United as being one of the worst teams ever, because they're a gigantic football club. Then the next question is, are you in a relegation battle? Yes, we're in a relegation battle. So straight away, Man United relegation battle. And then today he drops the line in. I sort of understand it, and he's sort of, even though he speaks English quite well, I get the sort of broken English part where he's trying to say, I'm at a far bigger club and the pressure's on me because we are Man United and we are global and we are one of the biggest in the world. I get what he's trying to say, but someone needs to have a word and just say, listen, Arne Slot's a great example. Arne Slot's a great example. He's been firefighting all season about Van Dijk and Trent and Mo Salah, about batting them questions away and saying that they're the more in than out and this, that, and the other. And he never really leaves any sort of wriggle room. I think with Amorim, I think these guys have got to be very careful, because from what I'm seeing on the pitch and from what I'm hearing off the pitch, it feels like to me with Ange and Ruben Amorim, these two guys are doomed to fail, because we just talked about Bayern and we've just talked about Leverkusen, and we just talked to Derek there about how you have to be flexible as a manager, not just to stick with the same system. You have to have in-game management. And I commentated on their game last week when Kobbie Mainoo played as a false nine. I'm going, this is not academy football. This is not Ajax football where you say to your players in the grand scheme of things, you go and play there and you go and play there and you go and play as a false nine because it'll be great when you drop back. I get it if it's academy football. Premier League football, you can't do that because you're going to lose games. I mean, their record's awful. 2 wins and 8. And one of those wins was against Southampton when they got absolutely pumped and should have been 4-0 down at half time. So Ruben Am's got to be very, very careful that he doesn't sort of drift and end up a bit closer to where the likes of West Ham and Everton are, or potentially even where Wolves are, because they're not going to go down. They've got that little bit too much quality. But when I look at the individuals in this team, my word, they're an average side.
I'm just looking at the goal difference there. Plus 11 for Spurs, minus 6 for Manchester United. That's incredible. It's 14th against 13th, Rob. Who's underachieved more this season?
Oh, what a question that is. I would have to say that it's Man United, given the level of investment. I mean, I know that there's a lot of talk at the moment about finances and, you know, the budget is tight at Old Trafford, that they're making redundancies to try and to balance the books. But they've still spent an awful lot on players. It was, 200 million plus in the summer for Erik ten Hag. They spent another 30 million on a fullback in January. The level of investment over the last sort of 10 years rivals the biggest spenders in the Premier League, the likes of City and Chelsea. So in terms of, underachievement, it has to be Man United. That being said, you should never have a Spurs side who are 14th in the table. They've also spent their fair share of money. I just think it's this game being 13th against 14th is a sad indictment of both those football clubs at the moment. And, judging by the league table doesn't lie. There are no false positions in the league table at this stage of a season. These teams are 13th and 14th in the table for very good reason. They just, Don's just said it there. Man United are an average side, and so are Tottenham. These are 2 average sides. That's the game may well be exciting on Sunday, but not because of quality, because of how many mistakes are in these 2 teams.
It's the race for 12th in the Premier League between Spurs and Man United. Don, I want to ask you about Ange, because I thought after they'd lost at home to Leicester, this could be a big week. Is he going to survive this? But I'm just going through the list of successful managers, maybe not necessarily at Spurs, but good managers, right? Pochettino, who was in charge from 2014 to 2019. Jose Mourinho, who was in charge for a couple of years after that. Antonio Conte. They've gone on and done very well. And of course, Nuno Espirito Santo is doing wonders with Nottingham Forest. Do you think what's happened to them and the fact that they're really good managers is maybe earning Ange a little bit more time, because Daniel Levy eventually might think, you know what, maybe it's not so much on the managers here. Who am I going to replace him with? So I need to give him time. Or could this be the end for Ange if he loses this one on Sunday?
Still some pretty good managers out there, like some Mancini off the back of Saudi. There's still managers out there, whether Tottenham would go Italian again.
But they've had good managers, Don, and they've not had the chance to manage.
No, I think the thing that's keeping them in the job at the moment is obviously not performances and not results. It's the fact, and it is a fact, that they've got a horrendous injury list. And you go back to Liverpool when they had Van Dijk and Joe Gomez and Matip missing and Jordan Henderson and Fabinho had to play emergency centre-halves, and they just about scraped into the Champions League. They were way off it. But with Ange, 8 first-team players out. Take 8 first-team players out of any team, it hurts you. Now, the flip side to that conversation is, if you close your eyes and you picture a Tottenham side conceding goals, it's Pedro Porro out of a position because he plays too high up the pitch. It's a doggy if he's playing on the left-hand side out of position, if it's Archie Gray. Whoever plays at fullbacks have got this weird license to go and run and roam anywhere they want on a football pitch, even when your team haven't got the ball. That's suicide football. The law and the rule, which will never change when you're playing a game, is if your 2 centre-backs or midfield players haven't got the ball, your fullbacks can't be higher than the ball. And honestly, you can go back to any game and any tape you want to look at and think, yeah, it's the fullbacks that are causing problems. That's what I think is keeping Ange in a job, because I think if Daniel Levy pulled the plug and fired him tomorrow, then all of a sudden, all these 8 first-team players come back. Whoever inherits those players are going to get a really good squad. Now, people will jump down my throat and say, well, all the first-team players were available at the start of the season and we're still losing games. And that's a fair sort of whip to crack me with. That's absolutely fine. But I just look at the in-game management again. The 6-3 against Liverpool, it was suicide football. They got mullered for 44 minutes of the game and they should have been 5-0 down. They were only 2-1 down, and getting in at 2-1 down would have been a major result. What do? Fullbacks, Jed Spence out of position. Fullbacks high up the pitch. Liverpool scored. on 45 minutes, 3-1, game over. It's the losses that he's took. He's lost against Everton, Leicester, Ipswich Palace. Tottenham side and Man United sides can't be losing against these sides. Otherwise, you're going to risk losing your job.
We were talking earlier about managers with plan A's and plan B's. He didn't have a plan B, Rob, when he went to Anfield for the second leg of the League Cup. They didn't even have a shot on target against Liverpool. Now, I like him as a person. I think he's good value. He reminds me a little bit of Gordon Strachan when you go to a press conference as a journalist. You kind of got to think about your questions because you know you might get something spicy back. But I wonder if Dom was going to go down the road of Europe that's keeping him in a job right now, because they're out the League Cup, they're out the FA Cup. They're not going to go down, but they're not going to get into Europe through the league. Transfer window's closed. So is it all about the Europa League now for Spurs and trying to get into that top 10 in the Premier League? Is that what maybe is keeping him in a job right now?
Yeah, perhaps. And the thing about the Europa League is it gives you two major targets, doesn't it? It gives you a trophy if you win it, and it also gets you in the Champions League.
Yes.
If you'd offered that to Spurs at the start of the season, they would have bitten your hand off. So they may be, the bottom half of the table, but there is still a chance of winning the Europa League. There aren't that many teams in there to worry the likes of Spurs and Man United. The issue is, are Spurs and Man United good enough to win knockout European games over two legs? I would suggest right now that they're probably not. It's all very well saying that Spurs and United should be right at the latter stage of the Europa League. They should be looking at that final as a realistic target. But other teams in the Europa League will be looking at Spurs and United and thinking, well, we can knock them off because they're just not good enough. So yes, probably. I imagine Spurs are looking at it and thinking, is there much point in making a change right now? Or do we start reviewing the situation, let it run out until the end of the season, and then make a change if we have to in the summer when it's easier to maybe get a manager in who you want? We're so far down the line of this season now. We're into February. Ange Postecoglou's already had quite a strong say in some of the players who've come in January. That suggests to me that they're going to see this out now to the end of the season and then make a judgment.
You mentioned Europa League there. Europa League. They lost against Galatasaray, Tottenham, drew against Rangers. Hoffenheim give them the game when they lost 3-2, but that game could have been anything. So there's no guarantee, like Rob said, where I think the two favourites would probably be Tottenham and Man United, but there's no guarantee over two legs that Tottenham, with their injury crisis, could put anyone to bed.
Would you trust either of those teams? That's the issue. So the battle for 12th between 14th and 13th on Sunday dawn, what's happening?
Chaos. I think that's what will happen. And I think you'll see lots of goals, not because there's two good sides and you're going to look at two bad defensive sides, two sides that will play contrasting football. Ange will just be completely obsessed with throwing as many bodies forward, whether Man United can score or not. You looked at the goal difference there, -6. Yeah. They concede goals for fun. They're not a side that do clean sheets. Neither are. So this game can't finish 0-0. It has to finish a bundle of goals. But which way and who comes out on top? I'd edge probably just towards Tottenham, but I say that with no guarantee.
Rob?
I think Man United may go back to that the way that they played at Anfield and the Emirates in that FA Cup tie against Arsenal, and just try and be as solid as compact as possible and scrape it 2-1. But it won't be pretty. It'll be full of mistakes.